tonight, which is the town entry signage, which we've got Micah and Max here to present on. I'm not sure which one's going first, so I'll hand over to you guys to take it away. Thank you. Oh, I think you might be on mute, Max.
That might help, hey. Thank you. So this presentation again is in relation to the town entry statements, and is basically specifically in relation to the resolution of council as part of the February meeting where the local traffic committee meeting with minutes was put forward to council, given there was an item within those minutes in relation to the actual signage that had to go through Transport for New South Wales and the local traffic committee, just to tick off some of those approvals processes and things in relation to the town entry statements project. So what I will do is I will move this. Sorry, I'm just going to change sharing of my screen. Lara's problem. Okay. Pick up the correct screen. Is that better?
There you go. That's great.
Perfect. Okay. So just to recap the resolution from the February council meeting in relation to the signage, it was specifically in reference to the Bellingen East sign and the Yeronga North sign, and the request was that staff provide a briefing to council just in relation to the options for the Bellingen East sign, particularly in relation to the community signage, which is close to that proximity, and also for the Yeronga North sign in relation to two options for the actual location. And as part of that, we've provided some costs and some other information just to inform that response to the resolution. So we'll start with Bellingen. So just recapping from a visual point of view, the actual locations proposed for the Bellingen East sign. Currently, as you can see, there is the old brown TASIC or tourism signage, which is rather faded and getting aged. So that's the proposed location for the actual Bellingen East signage. It is within the 50 zone as well, and so we'll talk through some of that in just a moment. And there's just on the side there is the dot. You can see where, from a visual point of view, where that actually looks like. Again, our options, as you've seen in previous workshops around some of the concepts, there are a couple of options in terms of the structure. The benefit of this particular site, besides replacing an outdated sign, is that it is within the entry to Bellingen. It's within the 50 zone, and really supports, I guess, that visual amenity as people come through the Bellingen township. Some of the big concerns, I believe, was raised as part of the commentary during the February council meeting was really around the community signage and what might be the options in relation to that as part of this project and as part of the process. So I guess giving an update similar to what we saw at the last workshop in relation to the engagement that has been undertaken with those key stakeholders. So Micah, who's leading this project with Josh Corliss, who was previously presenting around some of the tree aspects and verge management, are leading this project, and Mike has done engagement with 4 of the key stakeholders that currently use that space. And I'm not sure if most people know when we're referring to the community signage what that looks like, but it is that blue Welcome to Bellingen community events, I guess, poster board, if you want to call it that. So Micah's had direct contact and engagement with the Lions Club and the 3 Bellingen markets, and we're currently looking at what are the options there. But I guess the first point of that engagement and conversations with them is to really understand whether the site is appropriate, why they have signage there, what's the purpose of actually having that there. And 3 of the markets all three, markets basically have suggested that they don't believe that that is the right location for their signs. For them, it's around awareness of the events and the markets and those types of things. So it's really more about advertising that these things happen. They've actually suggested locations that are more within the township itself, where there's a lot of foot traffic, where it is quite easy for cars and people to see. A couple of specific sites mentioned with places like Connell Park, or in the actual town centre itself. So the three markets don't believe that the current location is something that they would continue to put their signage if there was an alternative option. The Lions Club, when they were talking about what their signage is really about, it was more around awareness as a community organisation and the role that they play within community, and not about advertising, which is really what the markets are doing, you know, as part of their events and activities. The Lions do believe that that is a good location based on initial conversations with them. And they would actually like to see that site remain and become like a services sign to support potentially other community organisations such as CWA or others. We haven't actually reached out to CWA and other organisations as yet. And as we move forward and have further conversations with the Lions, we will potentially look to progress those conversations as well. I guess for us, it's about establishing what's the purpose of having a Lions sign or other community signage there, and is that the best location based on their intent and what the purpose is for their organisation? What do they want to actually get out of that? And would there be consideration for an alternative location? If not, and that will be the conversation, and we can work with them to establish what that looks like. All groups agreed that there does need to be a process or a guidelines around community signage and what that looks like and how that's established and so forth. And we agree with that. And as I mentioned, the discussions will continue with each of those groups, and we'll broaden those conversations as we need to as well. Noting that this doesn't impact on the town signage statements being progressed, and this is kind of a separate component to that. The town entrance statements is one very key and specific project, and the community signage is something that will be ongoing conversations with them. In terms of, do we leave it? Do we remove it? What are we going to do right now? The answer is we won't really do anything right now. It's really about establishing what's going to work best for those community groups, and that also aligns to what council's ideals are moving forward. But we'll certainly work closely with each of those key stakeholders and try to establish opportunities for them to have that community signage, and we'll certainly progress those conversations moving forward.
Sorry, Max, just a quick one, if I could make a comment too for councillors. With the image that was put in the original report to council, it's probably a little bit deceptive that the proposed location conflicts with that sign, whereas in reality, when you travel Waterfall Way, there's actually a lot more separation between that signage and the community signage. So it's probably good to understand that even if the entry signage was located at that existing tourism sign, as Max suggested, in terms of the visitor experience and still being able to see that signage, there's not really going to be a conflict, which that image on the left doesn't really do justice to. Just important to understand that.
Yeah, thanks, Ashley. Councillor O'Keefe?
Yeah, thanks, Ashley. I can see that I certainly were confused, back in whenever we considered this, and that site near Crown Street looks absolutely ideal. In terms of the community signs, Micah, Maxine, well done for the consultation, the discussions that you've had. Would council staff's ideal be, I think I read into this, but it'd be good to be explicit, ideally that the community signs move, and I'm okay if it moves you know, because of the consultation process, and if we can find a spot better for everybody, we should make explicit, I think, is that the desire, and that just almost like to tidy up the entry area? Is that the ideal objective?
I think it's really about finding a positive balance and working with community to try to assist them and support them as best we can within what the purpose of that signage is. I think there is a broader conversation we can still have with Lions around that purpose. And potentially other community groups around, again, to really establish what it is what they do. We did get feedback from a couple of the groups, or one in particular, which basically said, well, it's there because that's what we've always done. And whether that is a similar situation with groups like Lions, I guess we're still to determine that. But look, we'll certainly work with each of those key stakeholders to try to deliver about best outcome. And based on the purpose of what the community organisations are looking to get out of having that signage there. And if we get to a point where we do think that should remain there, then I guess that's a conversation with council moving forward.
Yes, and you're right when you said they're separate, and I think we only merged them because of that earlier image that we had. So, yeah, what you're going through is a really good step.
Councillor Brotherton.
Yeah, thanks. That's terrific, Max. Just on the Lions thing, of course, I've been in line for a long, long time, but since 1949 or whatever, most towns have it outside their town. If you were visiting a town with a Lions Club in it, they would notify what nights the meetings were on, and there was always a little byline underneath as to when they meet. So I noticed that they haven't actually got that there, so they're going to have to do a bit of work on that anyway. And I'm thinking once you take all the other signage away, they're going to have to put up their own sort of holus bolus thing that will just be there on its own. So it's probably in their best interest to find another place too. But obviously that's not up for us to say, is it? Anyway,
I think it's part of the challenge. And I guess when you look at the size of that River Sounds sign that's been located beside it, you're almost at the stage of that needing development approval given the size of it. So that's part of the challenge that we have by having those community signs there. It then sort of almost makes it a free-for-all for anyone else to go and put their signage beside it, which is part of a challenge from a compliance perspective as well. So that's something that we need to work through as well.
Yeah,
and fortunately, the candidates for the federal election haven't found that site for their cornflakes.
They definitely need development approval, I'm sure, Councillor O'Keefe.
Councillor Shepherd, you're on. Yep, that's it.
As you look at that picture there, it surely says to you, well, we need a process and we need some guidelines, don't we?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah.
It's a good example.
Yeah, it is a good example. And I think that's why we shouldn't be rushing into any quick decisions. It is a process that we should sort of work through to do some due diligence, both with the community organisations, but also within our own processes as well, and really look at what that looks like to try to establish, like you said, some principles and some guidelines that actually support this, not just now, but moving forward when we do get future requests, or if we get future requests from community organisations. There's no more questions on that one. We'll keep moving through. So Urunga, as we've previously mentioned in the workshop in November, there were two options presented, and the option A is the location just at the bridge, so the bridge just before you go across to Anchors Wharf below. And the second option, which was raised, I believe, by councillors, was the roadside left just near the Yellow Rock Road turnoff. So that just gives you a bit of a visual on where those locations actually are. So I guess in terms of option A, the talking through some of, I guess, the pros and the cons for those areas is there is actually existing concrete pads there. which helps in terms of actually installing and constructing those signs or installing those signs. It's in a 50k zone. So I guess you've got the speed limit, which supports sign and people actually having time to look at what those statements are. Again, existing amenity, you're coming up to the bridge, there's greenery existing around it and so forth. With the river, there is actually no short-term maintenance because it is purely just that concrete pad that sits there. There's not any additional gardens or plants or anything like that that council would be required to maintain on that particular site. And it definitely satisfies the regulatory requirements. In terms of option B, as we can see where the little yellow box is, just near that sign there. So there's not really any current amenity, and so we would propose that we would need to install additional gardens just to create a bit of amenity around the town entry statements, and that's been costed at approximately $15,000.
Yep.
The other thing to consider is it's still in the 80-kilometre zone as well. So in terms of, you know, going past and looking for a town entry statement, yes, it will be there, and yes, you'll be able to see that. But, you know, do you take much notice or as much notice as you're coming up to that 50 kilometre-an-hour zone? We've gone back and done some costings in relation to the maintenance, which come in at about $3,265 a year, and that includes mowing around that site as well. So because it is currently on a Guinago Way is the old pack highway, so it still currently falls under state as well, and so we have arrangements with state like we do on Waterfall Way around maintaining that on their behalf. But additionally to that, there would be these costs. So the costs incurred, that $3,000 and some change, is around mowing. It's maintaining the new gardens that would be in place, and obviously the time and the plant and the materials to do that. But it does also satisfy the regulatory requirements. The other thing to consider is the setback would be about 5 metres from the road or from the white line, the traffic line of the road. So it will be pushed back just that little bit further as well. So in terms of amenity and what that might present as a town entry statement is something to consider as well. Are there any questions on that, Councillor Shepherd? Just on mute.
On option B, what is that other sign? Is that a sign that gets folded out for some reason, is it?
I believe so. There is another sign, I think, just a little bit on the northern side as well, which is another road sign, which is to I think a Marina Crescent or one of those signs as well. So there are a couple of signs also around that location. But as you can see, it's probably not the best picture to be looking at, but the proposal is it's about 5 metres setback from the actual road, and that's based on our requirements because of the traffic and the land. The Transport for New South Wales requires a particular distance for safety reasons mostly, is my understanding.
So we are working with Transport for New South Wales on how much of that defunct signage we can actually remove. So because most of it, and we've also been asking for the average speed cameras to be removed as well, because they're all there as part of the highway. So it's part of the process, and it all goes in conjunction with us too in negotiations to try and take on the maintenance of that section of Guinago Way as well with regards to mowing and all that type of thing. So we're currently working through all that with Transport for New South Wales at the moment.
Yeah, because as you look at that picture, this probably doesn't give the right impression, but you would think you don't put your beautiful sign next to that ugly looking road sign there, do you?
I reckon a truck had probably run over it before ours got put there.
Yeah.
Somehow.
And the only other question I had on option A, like aesthetically for me, having the Armco there in front of it sort of offends me a little bit. Would the sign sit above that Armco? or would the Armco impinge on the sign in any way?
So we're going through the final sort of design process as part of that. Some safety requirements actually require these signs or these statements to be, what do they call it? Frangible? Is that the right word, Ashley? Yeah. Which means that they would probably sit high on a bit of a pedestal. I don't know exactly that distance at the moment. And then the signage or the statements would be built above them. So there would be a little bit of height underneath before you would actually see the sign itself. And that's something that we work through as part of those final designs.
So Max, with the signs, there's two options, like there was the vertical and there was the horizontal. Would the horizontal be more appropriate for option B than option A?
I wouldn't say definitively, but would suggest that's likely to be a better option because it will sit that little bit higher as opposed to wider. But then others may suggest that having the width actually creates a bigger picture frame. So I guess that's something that we'll determine not just as part of the final design, but also with the artistic Indigenous artwork that will form part of that as well. And once we've got those concepts back, or the designs back with the artwork inclusive of that will help create a better picture in terms of what they'll look like. Yeah,
because I reckon if we were to choose option B, a horizontal sign would probably be more appropriate than a vertical sign in that location. To actually take up a bit more of that space. But anyway, is there any other questions, councillors, on those two options? Comments? Councillor O'Keefe looks like he's got his finger on the button.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, thank you. And I just want to ponder both options. And it's good what you've outlined. A and B. With option A, let's focus on like really significant reasons. The least significant, like it's such a minor consideration, I would think, is that there's an existing concrete pad. Like that would be the most minor reason that would drive the selection of where to place it. What you covered later on was nil maintenance because of all that. That's fair enough. That was a really solid reason compared to B. And so I really thank you for the consideration. And I'm a reflective type, so I'll think about both those options. Thank you.
So yeah, councillor, if you got feedback, please provide it to us. That would be much appreciated. So, is there anything else, Max, in the presentation, or is that?
I guess it's just the next steps from here. So we are progressing the project in terms of finalising designs and working with our local Indigenous artists, which has been an amazing process from everything I'm hearing, and starting to really get to that point where we're finalising those things and then to go to fabrication, which we are still hopeful that will all be done by June. And then looking at installation as soon as possible after that time frame. But yeah, that's pretty much it from me. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Max. Thanks, Micah, for your significant input there. Councillors, if you've got any feedback that you want to provide, that would be much appreciated. Obviously, this isn't a decision-making forum, so we're not after any decisions out of this. It was about that briefing as per the resolution. So we'll now sort of have a bit of a discussion after this and work our way forward. Councillor O'Keefe.
Yeah, just thanks to cycling back to the briefing that we requested, and and that irrespective of placement, it's such an exciting project to have current, fresh, artistic designs. It's just fabulous.
Mm-hmm.
And at some stage, we'll also get Max and Micah to take you through the exciting process that we've been through with the Indigenous community and that type of thing as well, because it's been a really exciting process that I guess we've only really been facilitating. We haven't been driving. we've been facilitating of the local Indigenous elders to sort of go ahead with that artwork. So it's pretty exciting to hear some of the feedback that we've gotten on the process and that type of thing. So we'll eventually be able to provide you with a bit of information on that as well. But I know when Micah came back from the day, you couldn't wipe the smile off her face because it was such a great outcome. So, all right, councillors, if there's no... Oh, Councillor Shepherd. Oh, that was a last minute one.
Could Micah just say something? I just want to get a Doncaster accent just for a second, please.
I really look forward to presenting next time on the Gumbaynggirr artwork, and I will bring something more fulsome to the presentation.
There we go. We're not disappointed. As long as it's within the budget. All right. Thank you all. And it's much appreciated your attendance tonight. Thank you very much.
Thanks,
Good night.
everyone.
Thank you, everybody.